Lisette Model was a photographer known for her portraits of urban life and her direct, unfiltered approach to the human condition. Model grew up in an intellectual and artistic environment. Her family had an affluent and multicultural background, which allowed her to receive a diverse education. Before pursuing photography, she studied music with Arnold Schoenberg, one of the most influential composers of the 20th century. However, she abandoned music and moved to France in the 1920s. In Paris, she explored painting before discovering photography in the early 1930s, thanks to her sister Olga and the photographer Rogiandre, wife of André Kertész. Her learning was mostly self-taught, but her early experiments showed a strong visual intuition and an interest in capturing reality with rawness. Her first major series, The English Promenade, taken on the French Riviera, captured high society with a critical and biting gaze. She portrayed wealthy individuals with exaggerated attitudes, showing their decay and vanity in a direct manner. When she emigrated to the United States in 1938, her work shifted to reflect the vibrant life of New York. There, she photographed eccentric characters, jazz musicians, and ordinary people in their most natural state. Her style was direct and uncompromising, tight framing, strong flash, and a focus on human expression. This video explores her artistic journey and lasting legacy, showing how her striking images continue to shape the way we see the world. Join us as we explore the legacy of this trailblazing photographer, whose groundbreaking work continues to influence the way we perceive the world. My Book Through the Lens. Inspiring Quotes from Master Photographers is now available for purchase. This book is a captivating and inspiring collection of insights, reflections, and wisdom from some of the most renowned photographers in history. Get your copy now. The link to purchase it on Amazon is available below in the description box. Lisette Model was born on November 10, 1901, in Vienna, Austria, under the name Lisette Amelie Felicie Stern. Her father, Victor Hippolyte Joseph Collis Stern, was a wealthy Italian-Austrian doctor, and her mother, Françoise Antoinette Félicité Picus, was from Savoy, France. During her childhood and adolescence, Lisette learned to speak and read French, Italian, and German, although she showed little interest in the visual arts. She was passionate about classical music, practicing with private tutors almost daily. With the outbreak of World War I, Austria experienced an economic stagnation that affected the Model family's luxurious lifestyle, forcing them to adapt to a more modest way of living. Lisette continued her music studies with Arnold Schoenberg, an experimental musician and composer known for introducing 12-tone atonal music. Schoenberg not only introduced her to avant-garde music, but also to many of his friends, who were expressionist artists in their works. A few years after her father's death in 1924, Lisette moved to Paris in search of a vibrant artistic scene. Post-war Austria had lost its grandeur, its territory by 60%, and its economic and political viability. Although Lisette studied singing with the Polish soprano Myra Freund until 1933, she abruptly abandoned her studies and turned her focus to the visual arts. Lisette shifted her interest first to painting and then to photography. Her early drawings already reflected her fascination with the human figure and the character of people. She discovered and learned about photography through her sister Olga, a professional photographer, and Rogie André, wife of André Kertész. André educated her in photography and advised her to never photograph anything that doesn't excite you. She then decided to become a full-time photographer and worked as an apprentice with Florence Henry, a Bauhaus-trained photographer, in 1937. Lisette married the Russian Jewish constructivist painter Evsey Konstantinovich Model, known as Evsem Model, in Paris in 1937. They likely met in Nice in 1934 when she photographed her famous series about the bourgeoisie enjoying the summer on the English promenade. With the rise of fascism in Europe, the couple fled to New York in 1938, where Evsem Model's sister lived. Lisette Model fell in love with New York at first sight. When we put our feet on Riverside Drive, we fell in love in an instant. The beauty of the highways, the poetry of the skyscrapers. Her first photographs of the city were a tribute to New York's fast pace and its acceptance of new immigrants. However, it was her series on the English promenade in Nice that brought her great success and attracted the attention of New York's photographic community, including Ralph Steiner, Edward Steichen, Ansel Adams, Beaumont Newhall, Berenice Abbott, and Paul Strand. Through these connections, she met art director Alexei Brodovich, who hired her to work for Harper's Bazaar, a key platform for the latest trends in American photography. This work became her primary source of income for many years. In addition to her work for magazines such as Q, PM Weekly, Look, and Ladies' Home Journal, it also gave her visibility, allowing her to be included in the inaugural 1940 exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art's Photography Department, titled 60 Photographs, a study of the aesthetic of the camera. In May of the following year, Lisette held her first solo exhibition as a member of the prestigious Photo League, a photographers' cooperative dedicated to social reform. Due to Evsem Model receiving an invitation to teach painting in California, the couple moved to the West Coast in the late 1940s. While there, Lisette befriended photographers linked to the F-64 group, such as Ansel Adams and Imogen Cunningham. Though these West Coast photographers were famous for their pristine technique and superior print quality, attributes lacking in Lisette's work, they admired her visceral approach to photography. During this time, Lisette also taught photography at the San Francisco Institute of Fine Arts. In the 1950s, the Models began to face financial difficulties, which led Lisette to leave several of her projects incomplete, one of which was a photo book about jazz. To ensure a livelihood, she accepted an invitation to teach at the New School for Social Research, a progressive institution that included artists like John Cage and Berenice Abbott among its faculty. Lisette adapted easily to teaching, which became her priority, even offering private lessons in her apartment. Diane Arbus, one of her most famous students, was greatly influenced by Lisette's risk-taking and subject choices. According to Arbus's ex-husband, Alan Arbus, 3 sessions with Model, and Diane was already a photographer. In 1965, Lisette finally received the Guggenheim Fellowship that had eluded her for years. She became very interested in photographing older people, possibly due to a sense of self-identification. She never abandoned photography, though she stopped printing her images. By the mid-1970s, she had lost most of her friends, and in 1976, her lifelong partner, Evsa, passed away. As a result of these losses, she became more solitary but never stopped teaching, giving lectures just days before her own death from natural causes. As a young woman, Lisette Model aspired to become a singer and pianist. Although her dreams of a career in music never came to fruition, she developed an unwavering dedication to the arts, which would eventually find expression in her work as a photographer. Model didn't just capture images. She immortalized the essence of human beings in their purest form. An example of this is her famous series, The English Promenade, taken on the French Riviera, which marked an important milestone in her career. These photographs featured wealthy bathers, often in unflattering poses, challenging conventional notions of beauty and social status. Later, in Coney Island, she took her interest in capturing the absurd and grotesque aspects of human behavior even further, focusing on bathers, carnival performers, and ordinary people in leisure activities. Her work reminds us that photography is not just a technique, but a way of looking at the world, a way to discover beauty in the imperfect, to find strength in the everyday, and to reveal truths that others prefer to ignore. Her keen eye for the unusual, spontaneous, and irreverent led her to capture unforgettable scenes of urban life. When she emigrated to the United States in 1938, her talent was undeniable, and in New York, she solidified herself as a unique artist and an influential teacher. Her interest in the ambiguity created by reflections in shop windows, as well as her portraits of jazz musicians and nightclub performers in New York, later influenced the work of street photographers like Lee Friedlander. Among other things, she was the mentor to Diane Arbus, who would also revolutionize documentary photography with her bold perspective. But Model didn't just photograph, she challenged. She rejected convention and embraced the unexpected. Her photographic style was characterized by the use of a Rolleiflex camera, which allowed her to shoot from the hip and capture unsuspecting subjects. This technique resulted in dynamic shots with unconventional angles and close-up portraits, creating a sense of intimacy and immediacy that drew viewers into the scene. She wasn't afraid of the grotesque or the exaggerated because she knew that in these extremes resided authenticity. Her portraits were a mirror of humanity without filters or artifice, a celebration of the diversity of bodies, expressions, and emotions. Her photographic techniques opened new possibilities for contemporary photographers to explore unconventional approaches and create revealing images about our perception of the world. Despite her distrust of the written word, her legacy could not be silenced. After her death in 1983, her work found a home at the National Gallery, where hundreds of her photographs, letters, and personal archives are preserved. Her impact remains alive, not only in the exhibitions and scholarships bearing her name, but in every image that forces us to stop and look with fresh eyes. Lisette Model taught us that photography is not just what we see, but what we feel. She invited us to look beyond appearances, to celebrate uniqueness, and to understand that every face, every gesture, and every shadow tells a story. Her legacy is a reminder that art has no fixed rules, and that unexpected moments are everywhere if we have the courage to observe with attention. Because Model's photography doesn't end when the camera turns off. Her vision of the world continues to inspire, challenge, and move us. And her legacy, like her images, is eternal.